Opening 2 middle schools, of course, means changing a number of K-8 schools into K-5s. And as you can imagine, this is a pretty complex process to name those schools and to arrange for who goes to each school and which feeds to the middle schools. So this is one of a series of communications sessions that we're having. We've had 2 listening sessions in front of the board. We're having this one tonight. There's another one on Thursday at Saban at the same time, 6:30 to 9. And these sessions are incredibly valuable. Your input is valuable. We're recording it. We're taking all your written comments that we hope that you make tonight, and make sure that the board sees them and that they're in a good digestible form. And we are doing things just a little bit differently tonight. And here to explain how is Matthew Landkammer of Coraggio Group, who along with Susan Karosky will facilitate tonight's meeting.
Thanks, Harry. Susan, you want to raise your hand? This is my colleague Susan. I'm Matthew. We're going to sort of split the evening in 2 tonight. The first half is going to be a series of optional activities that you can engage in on your own. And I'll explain what those are in a minute, but you'll have time to go around the room and participate in some feedback activities that are a little more one-on-one, or working with some other community members, or putting some of your comments up on the wall. The second half will be more like a traditional, everybody gets 2 minutes at the mic kind of presentation. The board isn't here tonight. This isn't speaking to the board, but it is your chance to speak to the community and have it recorded. And as Harry said, they're going to capture notes and share it with the board. So until about 8 o'clock, we're going to have time for you to do these other activities, and we'll sort of play it by ear and see how we're wrapping up. This intro part sort of went faster than planned, so maybe we'll be ahead of schedule. That would allow us more comments at the end. Like I said, we're going to give people 2 minutes. We'll get into that later. If anybody needs interpretation when they're giving comments, we'll give them a little more time, just because that's going to take up some time. Hopefully everybody got a chance when you came in to fill out cards and either sign up to speak if you want to. If you didn't get a chance to, she's got her hand up right there. Right there by that door, you can sign up to speak. Okay. Harry's just let me know, we do have 4 board members here. We don't have the board, but we do have some board members here. So board members, would you please raise your hands? Or stand up, even better. Identify yourselves. Over here. Board members there, thank you. I'm sorry, you've been exposed. So we do have some board members here if you'd like to talk to them, and they're certainly going to be hearing everything you have to say tonight, but it's not a formal presentation to the board per se. So sign-up sheets for speaking are over there. And here's the activities that we're going to ask you to participate in for the next hour or so. You see these big posters around the room with the sort of polar opposites on them. When making changes like this, there are trade-offs to be made. And there are sometimes good things at both ends of the spectrum, and you need to sort of decide where to land. So an everyday illustration might be if you were purchasing a car, you could really want a fuel-efficient car. You could also want a large car. You kind of can't get those in the same car, right? So you need to make a trade-off. You need to decide where on that spectrum do you land. Are you sort of right in the middle, sort of moderate fuel efficiency, kind of medium size? Are you just going to go with a smaller car that's more fuel efficient, or a bigger one that's less fuel efficient? So these are pairs of ideas that are set up like that. It's not that one's good and one's bad necessarily. It's that these are things that need to be considered and traded off when you're making a decision like this. And so we want to hear from you what's more important. So that's what these are about. Which side of these spectrum posters is more important to you? So what we're going to ask you to do is put a Post-it note somewhere on that spectrum. Susan's going to illustrate where you believe it should be, and you can write notes on that Post-it if you'd like. We're also going to have dots that we're going to hand out so you can upvote other people's Post-its if there's a comment that you think is particularly strong. So there are Post-it notes and pens on the floor in front of each of those posters. That's one activity. A second thing you can do during this time, if you have questions, technical questions, other general questions about the proposed changes, there's a question table over here. staffed by a couple of PPS staffers who should have most of the answers. If they don't have the answers, there's forms you can fill out and they can get back to you. So you can get answers to those questions. Please use it for questions. It's not just a general comment table, but it really is a clarification question table. Behind me are posters of all the different schools involved in these changes with the stats about what will change, and a blank sheet next to them for you to put comments on. Again, there's Post-its and pens on the floor in front of these. So find your school or find schools that you're affected by and put comments on these. The final activity is to happen at the tables. It's a worksheet that looks like this. This is a chance for you to talk to some of your neighbors and discuss some of these issues among yourselves. So rather than just this being a presentation out to you or a presentation back to PPS, this is a chance for you to talk to some of your other community members about what your preferences are. This worksheet is self-explanatory, but it's about the values that PPS laid out as guiding principles for this set of changes. And it's sort of asking which of these are most important to you and why. And so this is a conversation to have with your neighbors. So 4 activities: the big sliders, big slider posters, these individual school posters, a question table, and then we'll bring these around to tables with a pen as well. It's going to require that one person at the table be a scribe and capture some notes. Are there any questions? Yes?
I'm just going to comment that there will be communities that aren't well represented here, and if all we're doing is putting a post-it note, and let's say our particular neighborhood is well represented here, how is that really going to influence a sense of where the entire school district lies on these values?
It's a fair point. We can't control who comes. We can invite everybody and hope that we get a representative sample, but you're right, we probably don't. We will, in the speaking part though, we're going to sort that by feeder school. So we're going to sort that into 4 stacks and rotate among feeder schools, so we'll get as good a representation from that group as we can. But this is, you're right, it's going to represent who's here tonight. Yeah. Any other questions? Susan's got the microphone. Right over here, Susan.
So just to follow along with that, would you want us on our why I'm attending to put what school or schools we're associated with?
You're welcome to do that. That'd be great. Yeah. Anybody else? Okay, so we'll leave you to yourselves. If you see either me or Susan around the room, we'll be circulating around. We can clarify anything. If you have any questions, we can help you out. And we'll pick this back up at about 8 for the public comments. Thank you.
Just to confuse people, not really.
I wrote that somewhere over there about I don't want to come back here again in a couple years.
Boom. Blow it up.
Can I put a dot on my list?
Here, give me a dot.
So. I could dot yours. I did dot yours.
What is this about? One?
Yeah, you get one per state.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
I'm done carrying out the grandfathering. I'm going to go where they told me to go. That's the best for everybody. But I think that the school loses an opportunity. Beverly Cleary loses an opportunity.
Okay, please return to your tables so we can get the public speaking portion of the program underway. Okay. So we're going to start taking speakers. We had 22 speakers sign up, and as promised, we're going to do 2 minutes a speaker. With transition times and everything, if we keep to time, we should be able to get everybody in. No promises, but we're going to try to do that with 22 speakers. I understand it's customary to have student speakers speak first so that they can get home and get their homework done and get to bed. So we're going to start with the students. I think we've got 4, and then we're going to go into the adults and go through. And we've rotated schools to the degree possible so that we'll hear from a variety of speakers from different parts of the city. Any questions before we begin this part? No? Okay. So first up is Zan Olivi, student from Access. Susan has the microphone for you. She'll bring it to you.
Hi, my name is Zan Alivi. I'm a 4th grader at Access. I really like it because it's not too easy and it's really awesome. It's also not too hard. Hi, I'm Melo Conley. I am also a 3rd grader at Access. I do not want Access to, I think it is a lot better than my old school, and it is a challenge, and I have more friends there.
Thank you, Zan and Layla. Okay, next up is Jasmine Adams, Irvington student. Raise your hand and Susan will bring you the microphone. There you are, thank you.
Hi everybody, I'm Jasmine Adams from Irvington Elementary School, and I'm here to talk about Harriet Tubman. So the reason why I think Harriet Tubman should be opened, just because I think that it would have better academics for like other schools such as King, which only have like 27 kids there, and also even though like Irvington like has like really good like programs, they are still missing some, and I think that we could definitely bring the good ones to Harriet Tubman and like improve. And just my vision for Harriet Tubman, I would like to see like photography and like Spanish and like cooking classes and like, you know, we have forensics at Irvington, so maybe we could like bring that to Harriet Tubman. And yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Thank you, Jasmine. Next up is Soren Kowal Shaw, another Access student.
Loud. Okay. Hi, my name is Soren Shaw, and I'm a 7th grader at Access Academy. Access has been my home since I was in 2nd grade. It's where I have all my friends, it's where my teachers get me, and it's where my whole family has had its community. My little brother, over there, goes there too. So when I hear people talking about their community together, what about ours? This is my home. I know it's a really complicated puzzle, trying to fit all these different schools into different buildings. I know the district is trying to make sure middle schoolers have more options. At Access, there are 2 classes of 6th graders, 2 classes of 7th graders, and 2 classes of 8th graders. It's very small. Because it's so small, we get no electives at all, not one. And I know some people who complain their middle school only gets a few or not as many as some other school. We get 0. And if we had another strand at the middle school level, we could actually have an elective or 2. I know some people need to be creative about solutions. In fact, I took geometry last year as a 6th grader, and if any of you remember your geometry class, it's all about showing proofs about why one theory works and one doesn't. Have you done that yet for Access staying at Rose City Park? Before saying it won't, it would be cool to see if it could. These are some ideas that I have heard, there are some ideas that I have heard that I can tell you now would be disastrous. One of these is I've heard of splitting the elementary school from the middle school. That just wouldn't work at Access. Lots and lots of younger kids need access to those middle school classes. I have a friend who is taking middle school Spanish in 5th grade. My younger brother is in 4th grade and in algebra with 7th graders. When I completed 5th grade, I already had high school credit for math. So splitting the school arbitrarily at that point wouldn't help anyone, and instead create a lot more problems. In fact, it would probably ruin the very reason kids come to Access, which is to be able to learn different subjects at their appropriate grade level, whether that's 1 or 4. And I think about all those other kids who need access too, but are told there's no room for them. That feels terribly unfair. I know the district agrees, because last year my mom told me that the school board voted unanimously to add an extra class to each grade. But now that it's hard to find a space large enough to help all the kids who'd really benefit from being here, it sounds like you might go back on that promise. And let me tell you, that will hurt kids.
Thank you. Okay, next up is Sarah Lonnquist from Lee. Over here, Susan.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sarah Lonnquist. I am the new PTA president at Lee. My daughter is in 3rd grade, and my other daughter starts next year. Tonight, I'm not here to speak to the board. I'm here to connect with the parents who want to slow this process down. Many of us feel the process has been excruciatingly slow. Parents, I hear that having to cross a busy road to get your kids to school is a challenge. Some of our Lee kids already cross 82nd Avenue on a daily basis, so I'm sure they can relate to your concerns and may even have great tips to pass along. These are legitimate challenges, and I'm pretty sure I'd be scared and worried if I were in your shoes. There's something I just can't get out of my head. On the way to my car after the last Madison South listening session, I walked behind a group of women reflecting on the meeting. One said to another, "They just want the boundaries to change so they can have some of our resources. We need to slow things down." That really hurt to hear. Please understand, we don't want to take your resources, but we want our middle school students to have more than 4 elective choices. Middle school band happens on a stage, which is literally in our cafeteria. Art is on a cart wheeled to the classrooms, not a space of its own, and we don't have a foundation to cover the difference. The inequalities between schools are vast. Parents often say they don't want their kids at our school because of, among other things, our lower test scores. To be honest, I noticed that too and considered sending my daughter elsewhere. I'm so thankful I didn't. The teachers have been responsive and engaging. Our principal and vice principal are dynamic and know how to get things done. My child is thriving at Lee. She reads above her level and excels in math. She wanted to learn French this summer, and because we're lucky to have an iPad, she did it on her own volition. I don't mention these things to brag, but to point out that switching to the Madison cluster doesn't mean that at midnight your child will turn into an academic pumpkin. What my daughter doesn't have here, she's gained in a vibrant community that is amazing at working with what we have. She loves our school. If your child thrives where they're at, they'll thrive wherever they go. But the sad reality is that many families don't have an iPad or internet. They don't have a car, they can't pay for extra activities, and struggle to make ends meet. If their school doesn't provide resources, they may not get the support they need. We have years of tough decisions ahead. Delaying things will not change that. It just means that our middle school kids will deal with the same challenges they've already faced for yet another year. I don't see us as families pitted against each other, and I really hope you don't either. We're all in this together. We've seen what happens when people divide. If these changes happen and you're struggling, I'm here to support you. And I know as a community, we'll be here for you too. Families, let's do this.
Thank you. Okay, next up is John Deschler. John, where are you? Susan will bring the microphone to you.
Hi, I'm John. I'm a dad of a first grader at Alameda. I actually talked with Judy Brennan for a while. She answered a lot of the questions I had, which I am appreciative of. The reason I'm here is because for us the process has been very short. We didn't know that our boundaries were going to get changed. But I think there's a solution to our concerns. And so I just want to very quickly state that. And so I think for folks in Alameda, I think we're supportive of having middle schools open. We're supportive of having Harriet Tubman open. But their initial proposal involved no boundary changes. And for many of us, we'd like to see no boundary changes. Now I know, just because I read things online, that for some reason, and I'm new to Alameda, I've been in the neighborhood for about a year, that people think everybody in Alameda is rich and white and maybe a racist. I don't know. There's lots of things out there on the media. But that's not the people I live around, at least in my corner of Alameda. And I'm a wildlife biologist. They don't pay me bags of gold. And everybody I know thinks Donald Trump's an asshole, just like the rest of Portland thinks Donald Trump's an asshole. We in Alameda think so too. Truly. Every person I know. So I want to put that out there. Okay. So I think the issue here is with the English language portion of King. In order to backfill that, they're slicing up Sabin to push people into that program. And the assumption is that the folks from Sabin won't make the same decision as the folks who go to King, which they seem to love Kairos PDX and send their kids to Kairos PDX, which I hear is a great school. So I'd like to see King rise to the level of Kairos PDX and do those things for the kids there, the Kairos PDX, because I've listened to all the parents talk about that school and how great it is. And then you don't have to slice up Sabin and you don't have to slice up Alameda. So I think there are solutions without the boundary change. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Next up is Jessica Lottie. We're here.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jessica Lottie, and I'm the parent of a 6th grader at Beaumont, a 2nd grader at Alameda, and a preschooler. I live on 54th Avenue, and I'm in the proposed boundary change area. I wrote this letter because I care deeply about the public school system, and I think that every child in this country should have an opportunity to thrive. I chose my neighborhood because of Alameda's rating and the quality of education I expected my children to receive. My first reaction upon hearing about the boundary change was to put my kids in private school. However, after listening to the parents of children in these schools, I've pivoted. I am now more acutely aware of the inequities in our district, and I also know how much these schools are able to do with such limited resources. I absolutely support changing boundaries and welcome an opportunity to be a part of that change. I'm looking forward to the opportunity to become a part of the Scott, Roseway Heights, and Madison school communities, and I hope that my family can become both contributors and beneficiaries of these communities. In fact, if the changes take place as proposed, I'll probably move my 2 younger students to Scott right away. However, I have grave concerns about the current proposal because I do not think that it goes far enough to balance enrollment or reduce inequity. I know we can do better. I strongly encourage the board and PPS to make a more courageous path and completely revamp the entire district's approach to school assignment. And I urge them to make these changes as soon as possible. We can't let the inequities continue. Also, I'd like to see the board and PPS seriously consider the soft neighborhood approach that's been proposed. Our family experienced this approach previously and we had a positive experience. I think it allows for the flexibility we need as a district and it will eliminate these boundary decisions down the road. Finally, I'd also like to encourage the board to see what can be done to eliminate foundations or create a district-wide foundation. Foundations, as they currently exist, exacerbate the inequities we have between schools. With the existence of foundations as they currently are, Portland is progressive only in name.
Thank you, Jessica. Stephanie Messenbrink is next from Scott.
I'm Stephanie Messenbrink, and I am reading a letter on behalf of 2 teachers from Scott who are teachers in the neighborhood program. We are teachers at Scott and would like to present our experience as educators at this school. We hope by sharing these concerns, your committee will reconsider boundary changes to the future Scott Elementary to create a robust 2-strand neighborhood program. Currently at Scott, there are 3 classrooms for every grade level. 2 of those classes are reserved for Spanish immersion, an important aspect of our school that makes our community proud. This means the 3rd class is the English only or neighborhood classroom. This leads to many issues a typical elementary school does not normally see. One issue is that all transfer students are automatically enrolled into the English only classroom unless they are Spanish speakers. Therefore, only 1 class in each grade level gets the vast majority of transfer students. There have been years in which the English-only class received 10 new students, while other classes in the grade level only received 1 or 2. Receiving a new student is both a joy and a burden. New students change the dynamic of the class, interrupt instructional routines to reteach them, and cause assessment-based groupings to shift more frequently than is appropriate. New students are a part of the job, but it's difficult for neighborhood teachers to do their jobs well when interrupted as frequently as this. With 2 thriving neighborhood classrooms, the transitions of new students would be more evenly shared and affect student learning experiences in a balanced way. Additionally, and perhaps more importantly, with only 1 neighborhood class in each grade level, a dynamic develops within that group of students. As they are passed from class to class, any negative history comes with them. Issues like bullying resurface over and over again when students are not regrouped each year. No teacher is magical enough to break through cycles of past hurts for groups of students that are together for 6 years straight. These are 2 vital reasons that we ask you to create new boundaries for our school that will increase our population to have 4 classes at each grade level. If we have 2 strands in each department of the school, both Spanish immersion and English only, we will be able to better serve the needs of our students. Transferred students will not be weighted to just 1 classroom, lessening transitions. Students will receive a fresh learning community each year, doing away with past negative dynamics and truly sharing or starting over in a new grade. Please consider the many changes our school has gone through in the past few years and help us make our whole school a place where every student can thrive.
Thank you, Stephanie. Mara Stein from Beverly Cleary.
Hi. So I'm not sure where to stand. I've been following this for a really long time. I lived over by Rose City Park when it closed. I didn't have kids at the time. Fast forward. I now live over by Fernwood. I have 3 kids, grades 4, 2, and kindergarten. So, yay, my kids are finally all in school. But the boundary proposal happened, this whole thing happened, and I think that overall, Beverly Cleary understands why this is happening. And I want a middle school for my kids because I want them to have a real middle school experience with real electives that shape them into well-rounded human beings. I want that. What is different and what is making it feel fast for some, despite the fact that this has been going on forever, is that in the prior models, either the east side went to Rose City Park or the west side went to Irvington. And this model has both leaving Beverly Cleary, which, if you take a step back and look at what's going to be left, is going to be exactly what we're trying to avoid by making these middle schools. Beverly Cleary is remaining a K-8. Why, I don't know. I would love to know why, but that's what it's proposed to be. Under this model, the geographical area will be maybe 60% of what it is now, which means much fewer kids, which means much fewer resources, so they'll be the one school that has crap middle school offerings. So I'm wondering, is it time for that to become a middle school or that to be a K-5? And what would that look like? Would that help Vernon become a school that can address their inequities? Maybe some of those kids could come down to other middle schools, and then the entire northeast side is addressed. So just think there are some stones that need to be turned over and looked under. Thanks.
Thank you, Mara. Zim Zimmerman is up next.
Hi, everybody. My name's Zim. I have 2 boys that are half Vietnamese. One of them is in the 1st grade of the DLI program at Roseway Heights. Wow, that's noisy. One of them is at the DLI program in Roseway Heights. And the other will start next year in kindergarten. And I am here to support the move of the program somewhere so that it can continue. It's a real benefit for our family my boys to be able to learn to read and write in their grandparents' language. I feel unbelievably fortunate to be able to send them to this school. We'd be taking them wherever it moved to by going to Rose City Park. It just cuts the drive instead of adding 50% of the time to it. So I'm pleased about the location, but thank you for having it, and thank you for keeping it going.
Thanks, Seth. Jim Holstein is up next. Where are you, Jim? You're gonna make Susan work for this one.
Hello, my name is Jim Holstein. I have a 5th grader at Lee and an 8th grader at Roseway Heights. I just wanted to provide some background and history to give some perspective on where we are in this process. When our oldest son was in 5th grade 3 years ago, we started paying attention to the middle school disparities in the district. We were appalled at the difference between what small K-8s like Lee were able to offer compared to real middle schools like Beaumont, Da Vinci, and Mount Tabor. That spring, I attended a budget listening session with Superintendent Smith and voiced my concerns about the middle school situation and was told not to worry. DBRAC was going to recommend converting back to the K-5 middle school model. I expressed a little skepticism that it would happen in time for my kid, but she was adamant that I shouldn't worry, he would benefit from the upcoming changes. So I started paying attention to the DBRAC meetings and coming to these listening sessions and forums. Every one of them was filled with desperate pleas from the underserved K-8s to give their kids a real middle school. And there were also calls from some communities to slow down and delay. Now it's 3 years later, and my son and his classmates have completely missed out on a robust middle school experience, just like 10 years of students before them. So now, after 3 years of delay, I once again have a kid in 5th grade, hoping that unlike his brother, he will get something even close to the middle school experience that kids in other parts of the city enjoy. And once again, there are calls from some quarters to slow down and delay until the district comes up with the perfect plan that will make everyone happy. The district has delayed long enough. It's time for action. Please continue to soldier on for an implementation next year as planned. Just do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Brian Conley, up next.
Hi. This is my daughter, Layla. She's in 3rd grade at Access. When I was in 4th grade, I was identified as a gifted child. I spent about 3 years in the gifted program before I went out of it because the program wasn't properly supported. Kids were fighting other kids. It wasn't a good system. But I didn't really understand until I had a child that there are social emotional needs that kids in the 99th percentile have that are different from what everyone else has. My child was sent to the principal's office in kindergarten before the 100th day of school because she didn't want to sit in a meeting and be told a thing that she already knew. She wanted to sit and read. This plan needs to consider what happens to Access as well. If the maps that you see on the wall here were properly designed across the board, Access would show that students from the entire district go to Access. 2 years ago, we had a wait list of more than 150 students. Because of the way the district changed the admissions this year, we suddenly had a 0 student wait list. That doesn't make sense. That doesn't add up. So I just ask that we make sure that we understand that we have a responsibility to students across the board. 99th percentile students have special needs. They may look like they're more privileged. They may be wealthier. That's a problem of the identification. It's not about the students. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Amy Joffrey is up next.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having this board listening session. I am Amy Jeffrey. I have 2 girls right now. One is a senior at Grant, and one is an 8th grader at Beaumont. You might ask, well, why is she speaking? She's not going to be impacted. I actually think I should be. I do not believe that we should be grandfathering. I am in that northeast boundary of Alameda that would move over to Scott and Roseway Heights and Madison, and I think we should do it now. We should rip off the Band-Aid. We should just do it. My kids have had experiences in a great middle school, and it has prepared them, or it has prepared my older daughter for high school quite well, and I think it is a shame that we cannot give every student in this district the same access. My younger daughter has a disability. Just like the kids at Access, they have special needs, but they are still kids. We still owe them every single thing that we give to everybody else. And the way that I advocate for my daughter shouldn't be because I have the resources to do it. It should be wherever I send her, that school should be able to support her. And if it's going to be Madison, I know she's going to be welcomed because it's a very inclusive community. And I'd like to not make the choice. I would like to have the district say, yes, your daughter will be going to Madison next year, and not have to be the one that looks at all of my neighbors and says, we're going someplace different, and my kid will have to say goodbye to all of her friends. There are plenty of kids at Beaumont that are going to be at Madison. She will know them. All of our kids are resilient. They will make new friends.
Thank you, Amy. Holly Ross is up next.
So thanks to the board for having this session, and thank you for parents for being here. In our current political climate, it'd be easy to just be under the bed, but we're out here in democracy, so thanks. I appreciate the thoughtfulness and the questions from everyone as we go through this, and I want to state that I think the end goal here of more diverse schools in Portland is incredibly important, and I'm really personally torn because I want schools like Lee and Scott to get the changes that they need right now. And we're all here because we want what's best for our kids. And I believe firmly that what's best for our kids are diverse communities and diverse schools. Diversity makes us stronger. That said, I do want to acknowledge that there are some current students who would be uprooted in some pretty significant ways by some of these changes. And I want to just ask the board to consider allowing East Side families the same courtesy that West Side families got when the boundary changes were made, and the ability to choose whether or not they want to be grandfathered into their current school plan. So that's one ask. I do encourage the district also to make decisions and make them now, because we've had these conversations for a long time, but to allow for grandfathering and potentially also to make the decisions and make them public, but give some more time for families to figure out what they want to do with that before you implement some of the changes.
Thank you, Holly. Robin Harris is up next.
Okay, that's great. Hi, I'm Robin Harris. I'm a parent of a 5th grader at Scott School in Spanish Immersion. Our 5th grade students at Scott are the first class of Spanish Immersion, so they have really pioneered the program while at Scott, and they're also now set to be the pioneering 6th graders at Roseway Heights Middle School, and will be the pioneering 10th graders at our newly reopened Madison in 2022. So I just wanted to give a little bit of background about us and the way I'm feeling about this. So we chose Scott. We're a transfer family from another neighborhood. And we chose Scott primarily for the diversity and for our son to receive the gift of bilingualism. He's in 5th grade. He's almost fluent in Spanish. It's a huge gift. But we got another gift at Scott, and one that I didn't really expect. He has been in a cohort where he is a minority as a white male. That's really unusual. And that's, I think, a huge gift. He's learned to share space and ideas with kids and adults of all different backgrounds. He knows, based on his lived experience, that his is just one of many perspectives at the table. We've heard rumblings online, and we've seen the slowdown signs from certain community members slated to come to Scott, and I just want to address those of you who are here. When I hear about kids in Portland who are not having access to educational opportunities, I'm going to be honest with you and say I don't immediately think of Scott or Vestal or Lee, though certainly that is the case when it comes to extracurriculars and electives. I think of kids who are attending schools that are more than 80% white and where almost everyone speaks English as their only language. Look at America. How's this preparing our kids to live in this society? We need to move beyond our boundary boxes and come together in diverse communities. Lastly, I just want to invite those of you who are slated to join our community, to join our Facebook group, get to know us in our community, and I hope you'll feel as proud to be part of the Scott community as I am.
Thank you, Robin. Denise Holt Rob is next.
Hi, my name is Denise Holt Rob, and I am a parent of a 5th grader at Lee K through 8. It was 2 years ago, November 2015, that I stood in front of the Roseway Heights Gymnasium and talked to a lot of people, and I said, I know this is working for some of you, but this is not working for us. And I came back to say that again 2 years later. It is working for some people, but my child deserves a middle school education the same as other children. And I keep hearing about psychological trauma, and I agree, every middle school child is going to be subject to psychological trauma. I couldn't agree with you all more. But I also want people to think about the fact that my child might be exposed to both that and academic trauma if he is not allowed to go to middle school. We were told the middle school would open this year. It hasn't happened. I very much would like to see it open next year. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Denise. Tess Jordan.
I'm going to sit down because I have my computer. So I'm Tess. I have a 5th grader in his 3rd year at Access Academy. Access is an alternative program that was initiated due to a state mandate that PPS meet the needs of its talented and gifted population. It's not a magnet program, it's not a charter school, and it's not an optional program. Before my son came to Access, he read all day, and he was completely disengaged. And he slowly folded in upon himself. At Access, the priority is his engagement, and he's thriving. Most important to us, it's a welcoming and inclusive community that he considers his home. It's far from perfect. It can't yet meet the district's enrollment demand, and we're working on increasing the equitable distribution of its services, but it is meeting the needs of kids that other PPS schools cannot serve. I hope that PPS can appreciate my increasing alarm at the extent to which Access has been omitted from the facility's planning process. The moving pieces of the PPS Rubik's Cube cannot be considered complete until Access is housed. In the immediate term, this means keeping Access in its current size and configuration. A core foundation of the school is that students can take courses at whatever grade level is appropriate for them. More than half of 5th grade students are enrolled in middle school math classes. This model can no longer function if the grade levels are separated, unless the district is willing to duplicate FTE at each facility. PPS is committed to providing its middle schoolers with robust course offerings, and what we see tonight is an enormous amount of turmoil in order to reach this end. I understand that the PPS Teaching and Learning Committee recommended that Access grow from its current 350 students to 550 students in order to provide the same level of robust middle school course offerings and better meet enrollment demands. In the long term, we need to plan for this growth at Access.
Thank you, Tess. Matt Smith, next.
My name is Matt Smith. I'm the father of Jack Smith, a 3rd grader at Jason Lee Elementary. I sit before you, I was going to say stand, but I'm going to sit. I sit before you, a recovering privilege hoarder, with a long way to go. 2 years ago, after 9 years of scrimping and saving, my wife and I tried to buy a house with our VA loan in the Roseway neighborhood, but we were consistently outbid by huge cash offers. So with some concern, we took a risk, and we went across 82nd Avenue, and we bought a wonderful home in the Madison South neighborhood, and enrolled our son Jack midway through the school year at Jason Lee. Now consider our family chastened converts to the abundance at Lee School. As a white male growing up in Portland, my son Jack could have had a very different educational experience in a very limited, homogeneous world. However, thanks to his experience at Jason Lee, Jack is curious about other cultures and sees diversity as normative. And Jack achieves above grade level mostly because of his teachers, certainly not due to me. In other words, he is enriched in a way I could not have imagined when we moved to Madison South 2 years ago. He is both learning academically and of greater importance. He is learning not everyone grows up with this privilege, and he's enriched by the diversity of friends he learns alongside. As I reflect on Jack's experience at Jason Lee, I no longer see my child's education in dualistic, scarcity-minded terms. It's simply not true that both the common good and what is best for my child cannot be achieved. I know this because my son is living in this truth today. School board, I have 3 asks for you today. Do not delay implementing the Madison Cluster Middle School at Roseway. We're over capacity for the building's design. We have band class on stage, art class on a cart, and specialists working in the locker room, no kidding. And yet we can only fund 4 electives. Do not delay. Please ensure also, this is number 2, that all the Madison Cluster K-5s are adequately funded through drawing equitable boundaries and funding them equitably. And please, again, when you're assessing the interests of the trade-offs that you see tonight on the wall, be mindful of who can be here tonight. Most of us are privileged people like me. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Jane Ann Peterson.
Hi, my name is Jane Ann Peterson. I'm in my 12th year as an Access parent. 7 of those at Sabin, and now we're in our 5th year at Rose City Park. I have 2 children currently in the program in 7th and 5th grades, and my older son long ago finished. In these years that I've been at Access, we have never had a permanent home. It has only ever been temporary. It's been an ongoing question from year to year where we would be, or even whether we would continue to exist. As you might imagine, this is psychologically wearing. So I would now urge you, give Access a home. Give Access a home. Keep us together. Do what the Teaching and Learning Committee has instructed you to do. Grow Access to meet the needs and accommodate the students who need the program, and move us to some place that has appropriate facilities for our school. Thanks.
Thank you, Jane Ann. Katie Melo.
Hi, I'm Katie Melo. I have a 3rd grader at Roseway Heights K-8 right now, and a kindergartner next year. And I'm really happy at Roseway Heights, it's awesome, but in the last 2 years, I've really seen that the K-8 program is working for everybody. So, okay, that's great, let's close it, make it a middle school, we can help everybody else in the cluster, and I just feel pitted against Access in that I really want Rose City Park to open as a neighborhood school. And I'm super sorry, Access, and the whole thing is so messy and ugly, and I'm sorry, but I also really want my kids to go to that school, and it's our neighborhood school, and I'm afraid it looks like maybe everybody could fit in Lee and Access and Scott, but man, this is a growing neighborhood, and there are so many little kids in all the parks, and I just think if we don't get to keep Rose City Park as a neighborhood school, and if it should go to Access, that the rest of the Madison cluster is just going to pop at the seams. So, yeah, I just want to throw in a bid there to let Rose City Park open as a neighborhood school. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. Jennifer Morrissey.
I've been warned. I'm Jennifer Morrissey. I live in Alameda. And I wasn't going to say anything because I've also been online, and it's so dispiriting and depressing that I just thought, let's stop talking. So the comments on there have been drinking games, drink when you hear somebody say they didn't know about it, drink when you hear somebody say distance, drink when you hear somebody say safety. At least one DBRAC member participated in that conversation. So here's what I'm here to say, as somebody who lives in Alameda and works with immigrants for a living. I don't know anybody in our neighborhood who doesn't want middle schools to open, not one single person. I do not know anybody in our neighborhood who does not believe that middle schools should be funded equitably. I don't know anybody who doesn't think that the board should be thinking seriously about staffing solutions to fund based on equity instead of purely based on head count. I don't know anybody in our neighborhood who doesn't like Trump. None of them like Trump. I think the East Side needs a comprehensive plan. Everybody on that Facebook page who's calling people names thinks they need a comprehensive plan. We want to see a boundary redraw that's done right, that's done once, that's holistic, that isn't piecemeal. It's the same things that people who have been involved in this process have been complaining about from the very beginning. We agree with you. We want to be part of a larger East Side solution, and we are not afraid of well thought out changes. Put professional urban planners in charge. The success is tied to a full East Side plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. I have one last speaker card. Ben Davies. Ben, where are you? There he is.
So I was about to wave that. All right. I'm the parent of 2 Access students, and Access has really been a lifesaver for our entire family. The kind of struggles that we had in our local school are almost impossible to conceive for most people. Most people don't have to hire a law firm to get through first grade. You know, most people's 6-year-old doesn't come home, hide under the bed, and weep. Access has been an amazing program. It's very successful. It's changed the lives of families, and it really needs to grow and serve the families who were wait-listed over the last several years and they're being denied those services. Access needs a permanent and large enough facility to reach those original growth targets. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Okay, so that brings us to the end. We're getting you out of here early. Students who are here, no excuses. You got to do your homework. Couple things. I want to just give you a little bit of a preview of what happens next. We're going to collect everything you wrote and get it all typed up for PPS. Certainly for the people working at PPS who are working on this plan, but also, of course, to share with the board. So that's going to be done. We have one more of these meetings on Thursday night at Sabin, same time. Harry mentioned that earlier. So same 6:30 to 9 at Sabin. After that, we will compile everything we heard at both meetings and hand it over. I do know that they have found the input at these meetings, but especially the prior meetings that have already happened, very useful. Some of the things they've learned from the community have helped them in their decision making, and they've made adjustments based on some of the things they've heard. So your participation in these is not in vain. This is a worthwhile thing to do, and thank you for coming out tonight to do it. We had a question at the beginning of the night about, these are the people that could show up, but this isn't everybody in all the communities. There have been references to the online comments, and while there have been some unfortunate references, evidently, it is a way for people who can't make it to these meetings to get their voice heard as well. So if there are other parents in your communities who want to have their say and are unable to come to these, perhaps they work in the evening, please share this with them. The email address is ppsmiddleschools@pps.net. And I believe the web address is pps.net/middleschools. Did I get that correct? So one more time, the email address is ppsmiddleschools@pps.net. And the web page for this is pps.net/middle schools. Thank you all for coming out tonight. Have a good evening, and maybe we'll see some of you on Thursday.